Good morning, everybody. I just stepped out of my office and I came back and there's so many people watching. It's so exciting. Welcome back, guys. Happy Thursday. Today is our last live animal Q&A, which I'm kind of sad about. But this is our last animal that we have here at the McLean Center. So if you've been following along from the very beginning, you have now seen every single one of the animals that lives here at our center. You'll see the last one here today, one of my favorites that lives here at the center. But if you are new here today, my name is Shelby, and I work here at the Concord McLean Center. And I am the education coordinator, so doing lots of different things, but one of the things we're doing right now is these live animal Q&As. We have summer camp starting next week, so that is exciting, and that's going to kind of take where I'm going to head to after these live animal Q&As, and we're going to have one of our biologists step in and be doing like kind of live Q&As. Any questions you may have about Audubon or about birds or honestly about anything. So tune into those starting next Thursday. It's going to be really fun and exciting. And if you have small kids and want to participate in our summer camp, just head on over to our website. We're calling it our backyard summer camp. So unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we can't hold our summer camp in person, but we will be having a kind of a hybrid approach where you're going to have lots of outdoor activities to do in your own backyard, in your own neighborhood, and some online check-ins with us. So if that's something you're interested in, you can check it out on our website, or you can email me and we can go from there. So today we are going to see our last animal. It's a Pumpkinseed Sunfish. And you might be thinking, I see those all the time. Not really that exciting, not really that cool. But he is really cool. And we'll go in and see him in a minute. But one of the really cool things that makes him unique is he lives in a special tank. So his tank does more than just the habitat for him. It is we call it an aquaponics system. And you'll see it when we get in there, but it's a really cool system that is kind of it's a artificial way, I guess you could say, in captivity of doing what natural places, so like lakes and streams and things where it would naturally happen. So we've kind of brought it inside and created a habitat that is kind of similar to where our pumpkinseed would normally live in the wild. So let's go check him out. And if you guys have questions, drop them in the comment box, and I will do my best to answer them as best as I can. And it looks like he is front and center in his tank, so he's ready to hang out. Let me flip you around here so you can see him. I'll kind of show you the whole overview. So this is his whole system here. I'll come down here and kind of give you a shot of him. So this is our sunfish. He is relatively small. He's probably only, I don't know, like 6 inches. He's a relatively small fish for these guys. He does eat a lot. So when he first came to New Hampshire Audubon, he was probably like half this size. He was living at if you're familiar with New Hampshire Audubon, we have we had 3 centers, actually 4 centers, sorry. So our Concord main headquarters, and then we have, our Massabesic Audubon, which is down in Auburn. And then we have our Newfound Center, which is a seasonal center up at Newfound Lake. And then our 4th one was in Manchester at the Amoskeag Fishways. And that one is no longer open, so all their animals came here to live with us, and this guy was one of the ones that came. I keep saying guy. I'm unsure. I was trying to do some research this morning on whether or not how you can tell the difference between these two, and it's pretty hard because the Unless you have two next to each other, it's kind of a little bit difficult to tell whether it's a male or a female. The males tend to be kind of darker in color, and the females tend to be more of like an orangey, yellowy color. So something just by looking at this fish makes me think that it's a female, because she is definitely a lighter color in comparison to some of the pictures that I've seen. So I would guess that it is a female. Let's see. Are pumpkinseed sunfish native to New Hampshire? Yes. So pumpkinseed sunfish are pretty much like one of the most common fish that you'll see out. They live in freshwater lakes, ponds, streams, rivers, kind of shallower water, and they are definitely a more common species that lives here in New Hampshire. You can find them in any of those freshwater bodies of water. I know that I have them in the pond at my house. They tend to live they tend to kind of gather near shore more. So like where I live, we have a little beach area, and they like to hang out kind of right off the beach in the water. And they usually hang in like groups and things of, 5 to 10 other little sunfish. So definitely a very common species. This is a species that is very catchable. So if you're out fishing, a lot of people will catch these guys because they basically eat anything that is thrown into the water at them. So a very common species. Why are they called sunfish? So they get their name, the sunfish. So their full name is the Pumkinseed Sunfish. They get their name kind of in a couple different ways. Pumpkinseed being they have this nice ovally disc shape to them that kind of looks like pumpkin seed. And then I think the sunfish just kind of comes from their name and where they live, sunfish, and their coloration. Yeah, I think I do know that they get the pumpkin seed term because they look like a little pumpkin seed. Liam would like to know why they're called pumpkin seeds. There you go. Hopefully I answered that question for you. What else can I tell you about this guy? So if you can see his top fin here, or his dorsal fin, it has kind of some spikes on it. Typically they have around 10 spikes on their dorsal fin, and that is basically just for protection from predators and other things that might maybe try to eat the sunfish. And there's lots of predators of sunfish. Things like larger fish, fish-eating birds, so things like hawks, herons, cormorants, so other ducks and things. So there's lots of things that will try to eat these things. And then things like raccoons. I'm trying to think, what else eats a sunfish? Raccoons. Oh, we kind of just talked about this a little bit, but one of the largest predators of these guys are humans, because they are so easy to catch. And if you're a young angler or a fisherwoman, they're so easy to catch. And some people say that they taste very good. I've never eaten a sunfish, and I don't think that I will start. So, but yeah, that one of the big predators is humans. He does look like he's watching me. So usually when I'm like hanging out in the front of his tank, I have food for him. He ate some food this morning, but we can give him a couple pieces of food. And speaking of food, you guys are probably wondering what he eats. Like most fish, they eat or they feed on other small organisms, so things like worms, insects. In the wild, these guys would eat snails. They would eat some aquatic vegetation, other small fish. So one of the things I was learning while researching this guy is that they will eat other small pumpkinseed sunfish. So this guy is a relatively small fish. So in comparison to like some of them that I've seen in the wild. So maybe just like fresh out of the egg sunfish. And those are called fries, which I think is pretty funny. So a freshly hatched sunfish is called a fry. Fry. How big can they get? So these guys can grow up upwards of like 12 inches, but your typical sunfish is between like 4 and 6 inches. So not super big, but they can get big. I think the world record for a sunfish was around, I think it said like 2 pounds, which is a lot for a fish if you think about, you know, their size and how much they, or for a pumpkinseed at least, how much they weigh typically. This guy probably weighs like grams, so basically nothing. And so when you think about a 2-pound sunfish, that could be a relatively large fish. Let's see. I said what he eats. What could eat him? So I don't know how old this fish is, just because he was living at a center, a different center before he came to us. But he's been here at New Hampshire Audubon in Concord for around 2 years. So he's at least 2 years old. In the wild, they can live for around 6 to 8 years. In captivity, they can live upwards of like 12 years. So I would guess that this fish is relatively young, because he is, when he did first come to us, he was very, like half the size, like I said. And so I would say he's relatively young. What is the difference between a sunfish and a bluegill? That's a good question. So a lot of people often mistake the two for each other because they look very similar. The bluegills typically have, it's funny, they have more of like a blue color to their gills and their tail, their dorsal fins and their tail fins. I think that one of the things about sunfish, or kind of like our bluegill sunfish family, is that they're often breeding with each other and creating hybrids all the time that it's so hard to tell the difference. So, I mean, there's really not much difference. They're kind of in the same family. They just have some kind of different colorations. Sometimes they get a little bit bigger, but otherwise they're relatively the same. They just have kind of some different colorations. Oh, what are the plants growing on the top? Yeah, let's talk about this. So we have our fish down here, and he eats, which we'll see in a little bit, and he produces waste, like we all do when we eat. And that waste is going to go into his water, right? So when he eats things, and then he produces his waste, and it comes out into his tank. And then that has to go somewhere, right? Because it's going to create, you know, some bacteria and things, and some, you know, other types of, what's the word I'm looking for? Other types of gases, I guess we can say, that are going to go into his water. So we need a way to kind of get those out, or maybe use them. So in the wild, naturally, what would happen would be that the pond or river or stream, wherever he's living, is going to make the water clean, because they have different organisms living in it that can convert bacteria to like things like ammonia and nitrates that the fish is going to expel. So here in his tank, we just have some little plants, we have our fish, and then we have this pump back here. And what that pump is doing is it is actually pumping out the dirty water, or the waste. You can kind of see it here. I just stirred it up a little bit. It's being pumped out through this tube, if I can find it. It's kind of lost amongst the plants here. Here it is. So you can see it's being pumped into here and then going back into the soil. So what is going on there is the water is coming out of the tank. So the waste and the things that we don't want in the water are going to kind of come out, and they're going to come up here and be filtered through this thick soil. So what we have on top is we have some kind of clay, brown clay pebbles or balls and things. What those are going to do for the plants is basically just going to provide a rooting system. So a place where the roots can kind of hold on to. So I'll tell you about this in a minute, but And then we have the different layers of soil, and you can see the roots down here. And you can actually see right now the water is going, it fills up to a certain point, and then once it hits a certain point, it drains back into the tank through this. As you can't see it, of course, because this tank is a little frosty, back into the tank, which is now clean water. So the waste and everything comes out of the tank, comes up here, gets filtered through. The plants are going to help with the bacteria and things and convert it to those other gases. And then the plants are going to use those nutrients like the nitrate and the ammonia, and they're going to help the plants grow. So when I first acquired this system, there was a couple different types of plants that were growing in there. So I think right now, predominantly, we just have, and I am not a plant person, so maybe Betsy knows, are they pothos? You're probably right. I am not a good plant person, but this is, so when it first came to us, it was actually like fully like draped out to here and kind of all over the place. So what I did was I kind of looped it back around and tucked it back in here, and now it has rooted itself back in. So it we can kind of keep pulling it back, and it roots itself back into the clay balls, where it's going to grow. And this plant is much longer than it was when it first arrived at McLean, and it is flourishing, I would say. So the fish is doing a great job of producing the waste and everything that the plant needs, which I think is really cool. So naturally in the wild, in a pond or stream, the living things like, let's say, like oysters and clams and things like that, they're going to actually keep the water clean and keep the fish healthy. But here in our system, which is a tank, we need something else that is going to do that rather than other living organisms. So the system is called aquaponics, where the fish and the plants are actually benefiting from each other. So the plants are getting the waste and things that they need to help themselves grow, and the fish is having his water filtered, and the waste is being removed from his water and kind of being put back in his tank clean. So a really, really, really cool system that you could do at home. If you had a pet fish or something, you could kind of create a system like this. All you need is a pump, and I believe they sell these at Petco. A pump and some tube, and then a kind of a bucket to create for your plants, so you could grow plants while also keeping your pet fish. All right, what questions did I miss? You need two or so they could keep each other company. He needs a friend. Yes, I agree that he would benefit from a friend, but one of the things to think about is that we don't want to have to take something from the wild. These guys are wild, a wild species, so we would have to go out and actually take it. And one of the other tricky things is if we, scooped one up from the wild and it ended up being, let's say, this is a male and we ended up scooping up a female, then we could potentially have hundreds of baby sunfish, which wouldn't be ideal in this situation here in his tank. So I think for now he will be a solitary fish. Do they raise their young? That's a good question. So these fish will lay their eggs. They kind of build nests and things in the shallow water of ponds and lakes and streams and things. So at my house we have a pond, like I was saying, and the right near the shore there's a lot of like vegetation and things, and you can actually see the beds where they make like a big circle, and they will lay their eggs in there and kind of create what we call colonies. So sunfish will tend to kind of lay their eggs or make their beds kind of around other sunfish, and they will you know, build colonies, I guess we can say. And when they lay their eggs, they lay several hundreds of eggs, and they will hatch in 3 to 5 days. So it's a really quick turnaround period of when they hatch to when they lay their eggs to when they hatch. Just wanted to make sure he wasn't stuck there. So one of the cool things is that they lay their eggs in these beds, and then the male will come once she has laid them. The male will come and actually kind of protect the eggs until they're ready to hatch. And what he does is he kind of, circles over it for a while, and he will protect it from predators. And one of the really cool things is that they'll use their tail to kind of push away debris and other particles that might get in there and kind of suffocate the eggs or drown the eggs in any way. And so the male is basically doing all of the protecting of the eggs before they're hatched. And then the eggs hatch, and then we have a several hundred young fry, which I think is fun. But they aren't going to like raise their young. They aren't going to like take care of them really in any way. They are definitely one of the species that kind of, if you've been listening along, we've talked a lot about kind of different ways that animals take care of their young. So our sunfish here is one that is going to lay hundreds of eggs and hope that multiple or, if not all of them, survive. Instead of something like our mammal, which is going to have a couple babies and put all their energy into making sure those survive and taking care of them and making sure they know how to hunt and find their own food and things like that. So our sunfish is really just going to lay the eggs, protect the eggs, make sure that they go on to survive, and then the sunfish are kind of out on their own. If it's a place like a pond or something, they, will probably all stay in the same relative area, but I don't think that they're going to raise their young and take care of them and ensure that they survive. Good question. What are the blue things in the tank there? They're just little kind of balls. They actually help with the filtering of the water. They kind of tumble around and pick up debris and things, and then we take them out and clean them. So just another additive to his tank. Ooh, I've seen a sunfish nest. Yeah, they're very cool. It's really cool to even get to see any sort of nest, but a fish nest is really cool because, you can see the hundreds of eggs that have been laid and kind of watch them if you live in the area. What else? What else do you guys want to know? What was I just... Oh, you guys want to see him eat? Let's grab a couple. I'll spin you around so you don't get sick as we walk around. So this guy here in captivity, he eats lots of mealworms and things. So typically we would have live ones. So we keep a kind of a little system over here, or a little ecosystem of... Let me see if I can spin you around here. So this is our kind of our mealworm bin, and you can see we do actually have some live ones in here, and let's see if we can fish some out. I did just see one a second ago. It's probably going to be elusive. All right, so mealworm, and this guy loves mealworms, so hopefully he snags this up. And of course, he's not looking. And the mealworm is going to get lost in the rocks. Sometimes he notices the movement of the worm. All right, hang on. Let's see if we can get the mealworm. He may have just spotted it there. Well, that was anticlimactic. That was going to be more exciting there. Sorry about that. Usually he's all over food, but he might be full today. We'll drop it kind of over near him. Okay, so he is not interested in his food this morning. Normally he is like all about food. Food is the best thing in the world, but maybe he's full. So, yeah, typically here in captivity, he's eating things like mealworms. So our mealworms, they have this life cycle here. I can show you a little picture. I'll spin you around. So this is what we just saw, our larvae stage. And then they turn to a pupa, which is kind of like, it's kind of crazy to see. It's like half worm, half beetle. And then they turn into this adult beetle, and then they go back to eggs. So it's kind of this life cycle that we see here. And so sometimes when we get these, he likes to eat the beetles because that's something that he would naturally eat in the wild. And then we have, he would eat these as well. He's like one of the only things we have here at New Hampshire Audubon that we feed that will eat these. I'm not sure why, but yeah, he likes to eat them. So, I think, I'm trying to think if there's anything else exciting. If there's anything else you guys want to know, feel free to pop it in the comment box. Otherwise, this has been so fun. It's sad to think that this is our last live animal Q&A, but I promise I'm not going anywhere. I'll still be here. Once everything opens up, you can come back and you can come over to the center and visit us when that is possible. And we will definitely let you know when you guys can come over and come visit. But I will definitely miss our Thursday chats every day. And it's been fun to kind of see the people who've been tuning in from the very beginning and tuning in every week and asking questions. And I just want to say thank you so much for all of your support in this. This is kind of a crazy time for everyone and for us, and we're just kind of maneuvering through life together right now. So I appreciate your support and everything that you guys have, provided for us throughout these last few months. So, I hope that you guys will continue supporting us in any way that you can, and we will always be here for you. So hope you guys have a wonderful summer, and I'm sure this will not be the last time you guys see me on here, but yeah, thank you, and I hope you guys have a wonderful summer and a wonderful day.